Back in 2019, we covered our favorite filler villains from Inuyasha, which we define as any villains that were never in the manga who were just added to the anime storylines for a variety of potential reasons. However, on occasion, we would get comments asking about a different short-lived villain that was in the manga and anime that would not have been eligible for the filler list, and we thought, why not cover the one-off Inuyasha villains that were canon to the original story? For this video, we'll be covering our favorite one-off villains from Inuyasha that originated in the manga and were also in the anime. By one-off, we mean that these antagonists had a mini arc that lasted anywhere from part of an episode to maybe like 4 or 5 consecutive episodes at most. So basically, no main villains and no villains that got a substantial arc. They appear, they cause some trouble, they get defeated. Easy stuff. And of course, we won't be including any villains that were made solely for the anime, aka our definition of filler from the beginning of this video. And joining me is my co-host who will one day be the unofficial top-ranked Inuyasha fan in the world, Judgment Meter.
That's me, and my goal for the new year.
Now, let's explore the top 10 one-off Inuyasha villains. Number 10, Gatenmaru. Gatenmaru makes this list for his powers. I enjoy giant moth kaiju, and this guy is basically one of them. As with many yokai in the series, he has a human form and a demon form. The human form is pretty standard of a design for the series, being a good-looking face leading a horde of bandits. And of course, the human form is merely a disguise. His motivation is standard for a villain. He wants to rob villages, and he has an interest in taking Inuyasha's weapon after seeing its strength. Also, his large battle axe is a cool weapon. I don't think we see many axes in the series. Then when he transforms into his full demon form, it's alright. I was expecting something a bit more Mothra-like, but it's still a giant angry moth as advertised. Look at his arm things.
He just looks so fluffy. He looks like he wants a hug, and he looks very innocent, and I feel like there should be more to his body. He's just like an ice cream cone. He's just not complete.
Would you try to eat that ice cream cone?
No, I feel like it would be scratchy. Like your tongue would be scratchy after.
His powers are poison, just all kinds of ways to disperse poison powder everywhere. He either goes with dust in the air, or takes a more direct route and encases you in it. He creates a cocoon of poisonous silk and just lets his victims die in there, either from the poison itself or just because the substance can eat through many things, including skin. We can only assume that this is generally more effective poison since Moroku had a handy barrier ready to give Inuyasha and himself a chance to recover before the poison got lethal. It really seemed like his poison would have done better if this wasn't one of the only times Inuyasha goes full demon. Gatenmaru was a victim of poor timing. Full demon Inuyasha can just barrel through everything, including poison, without the thought of consequence, so Gatenmaru probably could have gotten higher on this list if he decided to bother the main crew on a different day. Even worse for him is the anime showed a slightly more favorable outcome for him, having him put up a good enough fight to survive a bit against full demon Inuyasha after he goes full moth, before ultimately being slashed to pieces. In the manga, as soon as Inuyasha escaped the cocoon and Gatenmaru went full moth, he was immediately killed. Maybe my admiration for his demon moth form was a bit too presumptuous, since he was not long for this world. Number 9, Ryukotse. I love that this guy is just a giant dragon yokai who doesn't play around. There's a lot of giant demons in Inuyasha who ultimately fill the role of big dumb muscle, where they smash around for a bit but get defeated easily. This guy is not one of those. He wants to fight anything strong, but not with reckless abandon. He'll sniff out the strongest being in the area and attack accordingly, like when he went for the Naraku puppet without even giving Inuyasha a thought. However, Ryukotse eventually did give Inuyasha his deserved attention when he learned Inuyasha was the son of his most worthy opponent. This dragon not only fought Inuyasha's dad, but ultimately killed him in essentially a draw. He lethally wounded Inuyasha's dad about 200 years prior in a fight, but in exchange, Inuyasha's dad was able to stick his fang in the dragon to put a seal on him that would never let him move again. That is, until Naraku gets rid of the Fang because he thinks the dragon can easily take down Inuyasha. Ryukotse doesn't even care who he's destroying. He's almost like a true neutral, maybe a chaotic neutral, but he's enough of a villain where you can't reason with him to join the side of good. His attacks are not that creative in terms of design, just being mouth energy blasts or beating down with his limbs, but they're very cool to watch happen. He attacks from all angles with his beams, and he crushes his opponent against rock formations as those fall to pieces. I like how he makes these simple attacks look so dramatic. Not only are his attacks well animated, but his physical appearance looks great too. It's a badass dragon design. What's not to love?
He's a cool looking monster. I like him. He's kind of like Sesshomaru's Ein and Un, and also like Sesshomaru when he's in his big puppy dog form. He looks fluffy. I'd want to pet him or ride him.
I don't think he'd be very compliant if you tried to jump on his back. How would you do that?
I'll wing it.
I really like the face that he speaks with on his forehead. I'm not sure if his true form is the dragon and that's just an appendage that allows him to communicate, or if that's his real face and the dragon is some sort of minion or extra body. But either way, it's the small touches like that which make this guy stand out. It also helps that he was our introductory opponent to Inuyasha's Bakuruha, or backlash wave technique, which is a counterattack, where one slash of Inuyasha's Tetsaiga sends the power of the opponent's attack right back at them with extra force. When you think about it, Ryukotse should take this defeat with pride, since if Inuyasha needs to utilize his opponent's strength with the backlash wave, that means the only thing that could help Inuyasha defeat Ryukotse is Ryukotse. Maybe it's not the best constellation, but at least the dragon was defeated with a cool attack. Number 8. Tokujin. Now Tokujin may just be a simple peach farmer who doesn't know much about the big city, but that doesn't matter because he can bring the big city to him. He has a mini village in his house where he takes defected soldiers and promises to have them trained to become a noble sage in that village. All they have to do is let him shrink them down to fit in this village, and they'll be released when they attain a form of magical prowess. And by release, I mean Tokujin releases their souls into a tree that grows peaches that absorbs their souls, and then he can eat the peaches to gain their powers that allegedly will give him immortality if he eats enough. I'm not sure if the peaches are alive with the souls that they get, or if they're just a vessel for the soul with no sentience. It's always hard to tell since there are a lot of dead things in Inuyasha.
We see a lot of dead things in Inuyasha. It's true.
Anyway, Tokujin gets a jewel shard to make his body literally rock hard, and we see that he fights like just a brute. The real mastermind was the demon peach tree that told him about this power, but blindly trusting a talking tree is not always the best idea. Once the tree gets enough souls and a jewel shard, he betrays and absorbs Tokujin to become a human-plant-demon hybrid thing, and now he can walk this earth and I guess get more power. I'm not sure what a tree with legs needs, but the point is, Tokujin really should have just ignored the talking tree. The tree itself is still pretty cool, having roots all over the place that it can grab with, though he is defeated pretty quickly. But at least he was the catalyst for us meeting Tokujin, who gave us a fun shrink the protagonist's plotline and taught us to always eat our peaches. Or not to eat the peaches. I don't know, they have human faces on them. I feel like I would hate their texture. Number 7. Mistress Centipede. Mistress Centipede is in a weird spot in terms of threat level. Since she's a big demon yokai lady, she feels like one of those mindless monsters that you would find at the beginning of an arc to give the heroes a chance to show off and signify that a bigger threat is on its way. And while she definitely did lead off the whole storyline of exponentially increasing threats, the Centipede herself was still a formidable foe due to when she appeared. She was the first ever villain we met, so this enemy with generic big monster smash powers maximized her power level by just showing up at the right time.
Like even before the crow, she started it off. Disgusting, but by the way. Super creepy. Almost killed Kagome, but did start off the show, so that's good.
Because we had no other enemies to compare her to at the time, she was a scary opponent. We had no idea what this demon with a human face could do, but she sure had a lot of sharp legs that seemed like they would be formidable in any other anime. Being the first major enemy, it also meant that she was the first enemy, and basically only enemy, to take the whole Shiko no Tama, giving her a power boost that most other demons couldn't get just because the jewel was in shards for basically the whole series.
Yeah, it was just at the beginning when Kagome had no powers, no weapon, didn't know anything. Inuyasha was stuck to a tree.
Really, Mistress Centipede was just lucky that she showed up right away rather than after Inuyasha got Tetsaiga and the whole team was together, or else she would have been toast before she even got a taste of the jewel. On the other hand, she was the only one who could drag Kagome into the past, thereby enabling this series, since she was buried in the Bone Eater's well, so maybe we should chalk this up to more than just luck. The only time she technically could show up was when Kagome was dragged into the well, so she's always going to be at the beginning. Plus, her creepily licking Kagome's face was a good "you're not in Tokyo anymore" moment. Hey, Judgment Meter, can you give me what Kagome's inner monologue would have been during that scene?
Ew.
Needs a bit more fear.
Ew. She licked my face.
Could you make it a bit longer and a lot more frantic?
Ew, she licked my face. Why did she lick my face? I don't even have a tissue. I need to get to my home. I need to get to this thing where there's no things there because there's no running water because I'm in the fetal era. Why am I in the fetal era? I just want to get home, but I can't get home because she got jewel, but I don't know anything about it and I can't get home.
Number 6. Princess Abi. Abi was one of the last one-off villains to appear in the first run of the series, since there were a few long-standing plotlines going on at the same time of her overall short appearance. Her presence was not center stage every episode she appeared in. We more got her in drips over the course of a few episodes between all the other plotlines, with a few big moments. They also had a somewhat ill-timed filler flashback episode about Kikyo that was a two-parter, starting the episode after Abi was introduced, so it was almost like they were trying to make you forget about her right after we met her. Amidst all that, she's still fun to watch anytime she's on the screen.
She's got it going on, man. Look at those eyes, that hair, that smolder.
And she's got a look on her face like she's ready to kill you as soon as she meets you.
Oh, that's good stuff. That is good stuff.
But beyond her physical appearance, we have to look at what makes her so deadly. She wants human blood, and I think she's also fine with demon blood, so just blood in general. The best way to get this is by killing things, so she just attacks anyone that she feels superior to, which is basically most beings. She just attacks everyone. The only reason she didn't attack main villain Naraku right away is because he said he'd help her get more blood if she lets him pass through the netherworld, and she thought if it was just a trick, she could kill him easily. I respect the confidence. It would have been cool if this random character from the tail end of the series just unexpectedly killed off the main villain. However, we could tell what her ultimate fate was going to be at this point in the story. So, how does she fight? The answer? Birds and fire. The birds retrieve the blood for her, and the fire is, well, fire. It's hot. And being a master of her craft, she can light the birds on fire to double your chances of getting hurt.
They spent a lot of time and detail on her outfit. I appreciate it.
Also, look at the detail on her birds.
Oh, and I'm sorry, not on the birds, but on the fire on the birds.
Not only that, she knows how to make an entrance, just surrounding herself in dozens of birds while riding a cloud of fire.
Oh wow, she's hot stuff. Oh, I'm kind of sad that she's evil.
I like that pun.
I'm kind of sad that she's evil.
No, the other part of the sentence.
Oh, she's hot stuff? Yes, that was a pun on purpose. Wow, hot stuff, number 1.
It's number 6.
Number 1.
While she unleashes an overbearing amount of birds to deal with that makes it easy for her to take on multiple opponents at a time, her main skills combine to make her formidable without the birds. She can light the area ablaze, form barriers for defense, she's got claws if she dips into her demon powers more, and then she can wield multiple weapons. Also, I like that she has a good relationship with her mom. It's nice when we see these short-lived villains' lives beyond the death and destruction, and her mom is a giant iron chicken. Even though it's serious, it's also kinda funny, and that also makes it sad when Naraku kills the chicken.
Aww, I'm sad about Iron Chicken.
This was the most disappointing part of her appearance, the ending. I was expecting Abi to go full berserk mode after her mom was killed and clean house against Naraku for a bit. And to be fair, she definitely got enraged at him and charges at Naraku without thinking. But you know how that goes.
No, don't. So that's how she dies.
Yeah, she is killed almost immediately after the chicken, and not in a blaze of glory. It was a pretty standard way you'd see any old demon get killed in this series. Kind of anticlimactic. Number 5, the No Mask. We discussed this episode on my creepiest anime episodes list, but to reiterate, the No Mask episode of Inuyasha is the creepiest one in the series. I won't act like it's as frightening as something from a legitimate horror anime, or even act like it's on the same level as when Rumiko Takahashi tackles horror, but in the context of Inuyasha, the living No Mask is incredibly unsettling. First off, it has the factor of the uncanny valley, being a wooden mask whose facial features are unmoving, as you would expect from any supposedly inanimate mask. The way it latches onto people is simple yet effective, immediately turning them to goo, or in the manga, a pile of body parts, which is severely more disturbing than the anime made it out to be.
No, it is horribly scary. You're not giving it enough credit. It's like the spirited away mask demon thing that just like crawls around eating people and then gets bigger and bigger and starts running and rampaging and just swallowing policemen and firefighters and gobbling up everybody. But like in a really gruesome way.
Then the way it moves around once it creates its body of rotting flesh is even more creepy. It doesn't even need to show any other special powers. It liquefies humans and has teeth somehow. All it needs to do is be touched and it's deadly. Finally, what adds to the creep factor is this is the only threatening villain who attacks the protagonists in the modern day. All the other monstrous yokai appeared in the feudal era, which had a fantasy vibe where you would expect giant scary monsters to appear. However, the modern day settings were usually realistic, being a peaceful city or suburban area where we could relax for an episode or two with no high-stakes conflict. Seeing the normally calm, escapist city ravaged by one of the most horrifying monsters was kind of sad, even though it was defeated overnight and no one commented on the body count in a populated city after the fact. They just celebrated that the monster was defeated and went on home. The modern day episodes were never scary otherwise.
Oh, I beg to differ. Half of the modern day episodes were terrifying.
What do you mean half? What else was scary about the modern day? Kagome getting sick? Kagome having to study for a test?
Yeah, terrifying. Scary. So relatable.
There was actually another scary modern day episode, and it was the one right after the No Mask episode. It was the one where Mayu was the antagonist, who was the vengeful spirit of a young girl who was trying to kill her brother.
No, she's not a villain. That's not nice. That's not fair.
That's why I said antagonist, not villain. Her motives were just against the protagonists when we met her, so she seemed evil at first.
No, she had a really traumatic death, and thank goodness Kagome was there.
I'm in support of her. It just doesn't change the fact that the characters initially ran into a few problems when they had to explain to a ghost child why she can't hang out and try to kill her brother out of spite that she died and he survived.
Yeah, but she was a little kid, and she was sad, and she didn't know how to go to heaven.
Honestly, the Mayu plotline that followed the No Mask episode made for the ultimate combo of fear then heartbreaking sadness, making these two consecutive episodes a weird break from the action of the early feudal era episodes. Mayu may be the most tragic character in the series. I'm actually feeling a pit in my stomach recounting some of the details of that episode.
I know, that's why we can't talk about it. You can't put it on the villain list.
I mean, she's not going to be an entry, but this is the villain list, and we are talking about her on it.
No.
Number 4, Tsubaki. I like that Tsubaki is the first dark priestess that we meet. Basically, every other villain we meet up to this point is a demon, so it's cool to see the dark side of humanity in the feudal era. She worked with Kikyo 50 years prior to the feudal era timeline and wanted the Shiko no Tama for herself to prevent herself from aging, training. To ultimately attain this, she tried placing a curse on Kikyo, which he was apparently good at. However, Kikyo pulled a "No, you!" and bounced it back to her. Though Tsubaki's curses kinda don't do anything. I mean, she says that if you fall in love, you'll die a violent death with this curse, but we never see that get fulfilled, so we can only take her word for it. Anyway, in the 50 or so years since that happened, Tsubaki sold her soul to a demon so she wouldn't age, though the power was not that strong, and sometimes she was in her old form and sometimes she was in her young form, so she still required the Shiko no Tama since she's greedy. I think she looks fine with the half magic. She's got her young skin and cool gray hair.
She looks better when she was younger. She looked less evil.
Stop it, you're not helping her self-esteem. Since she has to work with Naraku to get the jewel, we get to see Tsubaki be a nuisance for a few episodes. She's a lot cooler than in the flashback, since her curses actually work here, and she has snakes. Her curses vary, where it's not just a "when this happens, you get cursed" event, like the supposed Kikyo curse. Like the curses can involve mind control. I like her whole aesthetic where the snakes bite you to unleash the curse. It shows her vicious nature and how she is sneaky with her planning. Plus, she can summon more than just snake demons. She's got a few different animal demons in her arsenal. I also like when Kikyo's spirit confronts her. I feel like Tsubaki has always been the underdog after watching that interaction. Kikyo just has a hold of her effortlessly by grabbing her hair. I kinda feel bad for her. Maybe Tsubaki can have a little win, as a treat. Well, it doesn't turn out that way, as Tsubaki tries putting the same curse on Kagome as she attempted on Kikyo after the snake bite one fails. But just like 50 years prior, Kagome pulls the Uno reverse card on her, and then Tsubaki just says, "Screw this, I'm out," when that fails. But only in the manga. The anime writers did not like her unceremoniously just exiting stage left to conclude her saga, so they added a bit more of a threat to her. In the anime, after failing the second curse, Tsubaki then deceives two priestesses in training to help her, who I covered on my filler villain list, and then Tsubaki absorbs the power of an ogre from a forbidden temple, and then does a bunch of giant monster things. She of course loses the epic battle after she transforms and gets the demon magic removed from her in the end, reverting her back to her elderly self before disintegrating. I still kinda feel bad for her, since this all could have been avoided if she just never met Naraku and settled for her partial eternal youth that she had before. Imagine if she turned not evil and teamed up with Kikyo.
Never trust Naraku. That's your downfall. Oh, there he is.
Oh well, at least Tsubaki proclaims that she's the greatest priestess ever before she dies. It felt like she was basically saying, "You think you've defeated me? Well, joke's on you, I'm still the greatest priestess ever. Suck it." Heh. Classic Tsubaki.
I like that one. Ah, the side eye. Classic.
Number 3, Maten and Hiten, the Thunder Brothers. I feel like early Inuyasha had a lot of my favorite villains, not sure why. Regardless, the Thunder Brothers were a good mix of serious with a touch of comedy. I never felt like they were pushovers, but the writers knew how to add enough comedy to them that didn't take away from how much of a legitimate threat they were. It just made them more likable to an extent. They still did horrible things, however, we got to know them beyond being power-hungry demons who wanted to keep their jewel shards. We learned that their father was a handsome humanoid man, and their mother was a lizard-like demon, which is how they're related despite looking so different. And Maten's main goal was just wanting hair with his power, which led him to being jealous of his brother's good looks. But his brother was all like, "Chill out, man, we're living the life, just enjoy the power and don't worry about your face." There was a legitimate brotherly love under their tough exteriors. That being said, Hiten gets pretty pissed off when his brother misses out on jewel shards, but I think that's more part of his tough guy persona. I'm not sure how Maten plans to make the hair happen with the jewel, but I enjoy his hair-related escapades, along with him getting enraged when Shippo knocks the last few strands of hair off his head. He is at risk of literally killing Shippo and Kagome after that happens just from his anger about being fully bald, and has to be emergency killed by Inuyasha to protect them. But the whole incident was started by something so petty, I kinda think that's funny. I mean, just go for the shaved head look, dude, you would've looked good. And for how heartless these brothers seem at times, they have a sweet moment when Hiiten cares for Maten as he dies.
Is to let us know how important hair is. Not family, but hair.
But also family.
That was a very sad episode.
Why? I just went over how they're kind of funny. That's not sad.
Because the whole time, the bald one was wearing Shippo's dad around him like a belt. See that orange thing? That's Shippo's dad.
Oh yeah, right. The serious parts of the episode. I like to think that the pelt was just a replica of Shippo's dad to make it less sad.
Because the past was really big on synthetics.
So the intimidating aspects of these brothers are their sheer power and lack of care for humanity. They'll just attack innocent villages for fun. Their most important action in the series was killing Shippo's father because he had a jewel shard, which is how we got the little guy to join the crew for the rest of the series. As sad as that is, I commend Shippo for his bravery in the face of these guys afterwards. As the name Thunder Brothers implies, they both fight with thunder. It's actually more lightning, but it's related to thunder enough. Maten is more strength heavy with his electricity to go with his appearance, shooting a large blast of lightning out of his mouth. Hiiten has more agility with his attacks, using his thunder pike.
That was cool. I really like how they showed the powers. The lightning looked really cool, and they made the sky look really pretty.
I also like how they ride around in clouds. It made for a good introduction when we saw their attacks.
Oh, and Hiiten had those really cool fiery wheels on his feet. I really liked those. I liked how Hiiten looked all around. He just looked like a really cool dude.
Stop lusting over the villain, Judgment Meter.
He was a handsome dude.
Number 2, Yura of the Demon Hair. Yura seems to be the most popular of the one-off villains. I don't have any proof of this, but I've seen a lot of people online that love, or at least remember Yura, and I can see why. Hair manipulation is a cool ability, her powers were extensive, she was the first villain that lasted multiple episodes in a row, and she was right at the beginning of the series, so even if someone dropped it early on, they likely got to see Yura in action. But most importantly, her threat was a result of good timing. Similar to Mistress Centipede, Yura came into the picture when Inuyasha didn't have a sword yet, and Kagome barely knew anything about the feudal era or her own powers still, so Yura was right on top of ways to become memorable.
Here's what the feudal era has to offer Kagome. Hot demons.
Yes, Yura is also attractive and doesn't wear pants.
And boobs. She has boobs. She has no undershirt, just boobs.
I'm sure somebody made their first AMV to Yura.
Now imagine listening to that AMV with Evanescence in the background.
Yura's power is hair, and a lot of it. Her powers really feel limitless. Hair manipulation in its most basic form is using one's hair to grab and toss things, but Yura does way more than just that. With a flick of her comb, her tendrils of hair extend out to engulf the entire area, and they have good range. I don't think there's a cap on how much hair she can release. When she's just chilling, she hangs out in a giant cocoon of hair, which also acts as a good storage unit for her red skull, which isn't hiding anything. Stop asking, don't worry about it.
Her only friend.
The hair is also just thick enough to create a makeshift shield. However, she can dial back the size and just use the strands if she wants to, and for more than just direct attacks. The hair can act as a tracking device since it's hard to see and has near infinite length. The strands can also act as puppet strings to make unconscious bodies fight you. Granted, they're not very coordinated puppets, but they can swing something sharp around, so they'll suffice for Yura. And if all else fails, she can light the hair on fire. You would think with the flammable nature of hair, that would be a weakness for her, but not only does she use burning hair to her advantage, but she willingly lights it on fire.
She was a good introduction to demons for us. She was sly, she was quick, she was cunning. Look at her, she's so cool. She was so confident.
Also, she has a sword, kind of gets lost in the shuffle with her hair attacks.
But she really shouldn't lick that blade. She doesn't know where it's been. That has germs on it. Dirty.
And in the end, we learn that the humanoid Yura was just an illusion created by her real form, the comb, which was hidden away in that inconspicuous red skull. But give that comb some credit, it has some great fashion sense with its fake body.
Look at that pop of red. Man, she knows how to accessorize.
For number 1, it was hard to determine what makes a character the best, so we decided to go with the one-off villain that ultimately had the biggest impact on the series with her relatively small appearance. Number 1, Urasue. Urasue revives Kikyo. Could you imagine how much the drama would have been reduced if she never did that? Her single action changes the trajectory of the series, and it's funny how little she appeared in the grand scheme of things. She arrived, stole some remains, wrecked some stuff, revived a body, and then died. Seems like a pretty standard life for a one-off villain on paper, but when you look at the details of each step, you'll see Urasue was aiming quite high. Urasue stole Kikyo's remains to revive her with dark magic. Her only goal was to have the revived Kikyo track down the jewel shards for her so she could get limitless power and all that. But did she really think that Kikyo would just be a mindless servant to her when revived? I know Urasue is good at reviving the dead and probably has a game plan to get them on her side, but did she really expect nothing to go wrong by reviving one of the most notable priestesses in history? Maybe I'm just biased because I know what would ultimately happen, and I know Kikyo's backstory, but did Urasue take a second to consider that there may be an issue reviving the one person meant to protect the jewel at all costs? Either Urasue was uninformed or just arrogant. I'm leaning towards the latter. I like how this whole process was just a normal activity for Urasue, despite how series-changing the result was. She's an expert at bringing the dead back to life, so breaking in to get Kikyo's ashes and breathing life into her was just a walk in the park, just another Tuesday. She even treated the issue of not being able to find Kikyo's soul for the body like it was a simple fix. Oh, it doesn't have a soul? Well, my handbook says all I have to do is put the girl with the soul into this herbal water for 10 to 15 minutes and the problem should be resolved. And indeed, the problem was resolved, but at what cost? Kikyo understandably knows that she should not be alive and kills Urasue in response, so we exchange one problem for another and spend the next 150 episodes or so with an angry love triangle of vengeance going on because of it.
She thought she had everything planned, but Kikyo was like, I was happy being dead, or at least I was okay with it, and you woke me up, and now I'm just gonna burn everything. I'm just gonna burn it down.
I like how Urasue doesn't seem to care too much that her creation just killed her. She's like, you win some, you lose some. At least I don't have to clean up this mess I just created.
Now everybody's screwed. Yay! Now Kikyo's everybody's problem.
Even though Urasue's not on this list for her fighting style, she still has a few cool attacks. Her main weapon is a scythe, which gets the job done of being a sharp object, but I like that she doesn't even need to use the lethal side of it when she faces off against Kaede's men. She just uses her gross nails to scratch the metal of the weapon to make a horrible noise to incapacitate them so she can escape. Urasue also controls clay zombies, which are more overwhelming than they are strong. She just sends armies of them at the crew at a time to get trampled easily, but you gotta trample a lot of them, so they act as a good stall tool. The power was liked so much that one of the anime writers even brought it back in the filler episode with Urasue's son, which I discussed on the filler list. Attacks aside, Urasue's legacy on the series may get overshadowed by Kikyo's impact on the story, but without Urasue, a large aspect of the franchise would be missing, which is enough to get Urasue the top spot on this list of one-off Inuyasha villains. Now, what did you think? Did you like all these short-lived villains? Did you hate some of them? And what other canon one-off Inuyasha villains did we leave off this list? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.